When you think of the most powerful creatures that Dungeons & Dragons has to offer, there's always a certain number of them that immediately pop into your head. You might think of ancient dragons who can pretty much destroy an entire party of adventurers with, honestly, just simply one giant breath attack. You might even think of the Tarrasque or the Kraken, whose size is so massive that all they have to do is roll over and you're dead. We talked about the Death Tyrant before and how insane they can get, but there's also just the simply normal liches that can provide a huge roadblock to a full party. But no one ever thinks of the Gynosphinx. There is a pretty big reason why Gynosphinxes are not a particularly common enemy for a group of high-level adventurers, and that's mainly because they are actually good, as in good-natured. You see, these types of sphinxes are mainly summoned by the gods to protect ancient sites, treasures, knowledge, or extraplanar gateways. Things that would generally be way too powerful for normal mortals to possess. This is the eternal duty of both the Andro and the Gynosphinxes, to essentially decide who gets these glorious items and who doesn't. And how do they do that? By testing the adventurers, of course. MrRhexes are well known to give quests to adventurers in order to decide whether or not they're worthy of the treasures that they hold, while Gynosphinxes, on the other hand, prefer to give riddles and tests of cunning and knowledge to decide. If, and only if, the prospective adventurers would actually succeed in their trials, then would the Sphinx give access to the treasure. If the adventurers were to fail, then the Sphinx would turn against them and kill them for trying. But big whoop, right? I mean, it's just another monster to slay, you might say. Well, unfortunately, this is not just another monster. Yeah, you might be able to slay ancient dragons, defeat devils and demons easily. You might even have defeated a Tarrasque, but this is different, you guys. Fighting a Sphinx in its lair might be the single biggest mistake that you would ever make, for they hold more power in there than any other creature does anywhere. For the Sphinxes hold dominion over time and space itself. Whereas you might start the battle instead of an ancient pyramid, you might very soon realize that you're actually orbiting a moon in space, or stuck in a planar reality without a way out. Sphinxes can transport you and itself to any other plane of existence without you having any say in the matter. And then, it can simply leave you there, stranded forever. Most Sphinxes tend to use this ability to change the reality of their location to suit the mood, or to portray an air of magnificence to the quest that they're presenting. For example, an Gynosphinx might transport you to a planar reality that all it contains might just be a crime scene for you to solve. Or a Gynosphinx might transport you to an enormous life-size chessboard to play against her, or either of them could simply transport you to a layer of the abyss and charge you with defeating 46 demons before saving you and taking you out. This ability is usually reserved for this kind of opportunity, but it can be used against you, and it probably will. So if you decide to fight a Gynosphinx or an Gynosphinx in its lair, you better have the ability to transport yourself through realities, or else risk getting stuck somewhere you don't want to be. Now, I did say space and time dominion. You see, time is simply but a tool for these two Sphinxes to control. For some of the most powerful abilities that these creatures possess are simply tailored to modifying this form of reality, moving forward in time or backwards. The powerful sense of time that these creatures control can make you age up to 20 years in the span of just 4 to 6 seconds. So if you're a human, then you really want to make sure that you carry with yourself a cleric willing and able to restore you back to normal with a high-level cleansing spell, otherwise you are literally screwed. More so than that, these creatures also have the ability to regress you back in time, up to 20 years, so if possible, they will very easily drop you on your knees and force you into a baby. How often these abilities can be used and how fast they can age you, definitely depends on the Sphinx itself and how much power was given to it by the gods. So, guys, results might vary in this situation, but hey, I wouldn't chance it if I were you. Why? Because that is not all. Gynosphinxes and Gynosphinxes possess the single most interesting ability in the entire game. At least for me. This is the one thing that truly scares me but also inspires me. It might just very well be the greatest reward a Sphinx can give you, or the single greatest curse. These Sphinxes have the ability to actually transport you backwards and forward in time, as in literally take you into the future or into the past, forever. It is believed that only a wish spell could ever take you back to your normal time, so for all intents and purposes, that's it for you. This movement in time is limited to a few years at a time, for typically an average of 10 years forward or backwards per effect. An effect that could theoretically be activated about 3 to 4 times a day, moving you at most an average of 40 years into the future or into the past per day. So, I want to ask you all as adventurers to be extremely careful when dealing with Sphinxes, for this can literally be campaign ending. Most people you know and love can just be gone, just like that from your lives. However powerful as this ability is, it is very seldom seen or used, since time manipulation can be a very tricky mistress. You see, the types of Sphinxes that hold these powers tend to be the ones sent by the gods for the purposes of protecting sacred items and sacred artifacts, and because of that, they have to abide by the rules of these gods. And one of the greatest rules of the gods is the protection of time and space itself. You see, time magic is very much regulated and mostly forbidden in Dungeons & Dragons. It is, in fact, one of the very creatures that we talked about in a previous episode that actually enforces these rules, the Quarut, one of the inevitables constructed in Mechanus, the home of the Modron race. But because of this, you probably won't see much time traveling made by these Sphinxes, as powerful as those effects could be to their agendas. Gynosphinxes, however, do have a very peculiar ability that sort of links into this sort of, time traveling power. You see, Gynosphinxes have the natural and very specific ability to be able to actually see into the future and past, simply by looking. They are able to discern how something used to look like or will look like into the future by simply, presently, looking at it. Even being able to see how a location would look like in the future or how a location used to look like in the past for the purposes of investigation or examination is something that is extraordinarily powerful. However, good luck trying to take a Gynosphinx out of her lair to look at something, since neither a Gyno nor an Androsphinx ever, and I mean ever, leave their lairs, especially not those who hold these incredible powers. Now, both the Androsphinxes and the Gynosphinxes are for the most part universally good. It would be hilariously rare to see one of them use their powers for evil, so as far as that is concerned, you need not worry. However, it has been seen in the past that these Sphinxes do sometimes reject their jobs and essentially stop being a cleric to whichever god commanded them in the past. You see, a Sphinx of this kind has to test adventurers, that's what they do, and those who fail in the trials are supposed to die. That's how it is written. You fail at their quest and the Sphinx will kill you. Now, I mentioned before that Sphinxes are universally good, which means you probably know where I'm going with this. It's really just a matter of time until the Sphinx will get tired of killing innocent heroes, or just in general, just get exhausted from simply following commands. These are the Sphinxes that you truly want to encounter versus the other ones, because you can at least debate and argue with them. Hell, you might even be able to barter for whatever treasures that they guard. And that sort of brings me to their treasure. I mean, what is it that these guys hold? They are so powerful, right? I mean, putting this time-traveling, incredibly powerful guardian to protect something, that something must be truly special, no? Well, yes indeed. Most of the time the treasure that they guard is of legendary or artifact level of quality. It's something that a deity itself would even want to keep from other deities. But why though, right? Couldn't great powerful archdemons simply kill the Sphinx and get the loot? Not quite. See, this is the most interesting part about the Sphinxes that protect this type of divine treasures, is that you must be accepted by the Sphinx for you to even get the treasure, otherwise you just can't. Killing the Sphinx or failing at their trial makes it so that by divine command, you are barred from ever interacting with the treasure. It doesn't matter how much you look for it, or it doesn't matter how much magic you use to get it. If you kill the Sphinx, the treasure will simply not be there for you to obtain it. The only way to get the treasure is for the Sphinx to give it to you. without any workarounds. This is what makes them such a good tool for the gods to protect all that is precious to them. Now, we are already going in a little bit long on this episode, but this wouldn't be a true lore video if we didn't at least talk about the reproduction of sphinxes. Because yes, sphinxes do reproduce, and it is kind of complicated as you might expect. It all starts with the fact that there are many different kinds of sphinxes. It is not just MrRhexes and Gynosphinxes. In fact, it is very much debated how many different kinds there really are, and most people are only truly aware of a few. For example, let's talk a little bit about the Cryosphinx. Cryosphinxes are pretty much like other sphinxes, except that it has the head of a ram instead of that of a humanoid-looking face. Because of this, the general demeanor changes from that of a normal sphinx. They tend to be less intelligent, and they lose pretty much all of their innate powers that a true androsphinx, for example, would have. They also don't really care much for a lair, and they tend to always be moving from one place to the other. Because of this, they dig holes in the ground to bury their treasure wherever they go. As dumb as they might be, they have a perfect memory for recalling where their buried treasure is, regardless of how many holes they have dug in their lives. Gynosphinxes, on the other hand, they have the face of a hawk instead of that of a ram or a humanoid-like face, and they tend to enjoy flying about and are substantially faster and better at it than any other kind of sphinx. They also enjoy forming nests in really high places and tend to bury their treasure directly below their nests, where they feel like they can protect it if needed. Now, these two different kinds of sphinxes are really not as interesting as the andro or the gyno, but I'm bringing them over just to further explain the intricate mating processes that these sphinxes go through. You see, these two kinds, the Gynosphinx and the Cryosphinx, they will go out of their way to find a Gynosphinx to mate. Gynosphinxes are the only female kind of sphinxes that exist, and because of this, every other kind of sphinx will seek it in order to reproduce, because every other kind of sphinx is a male. The Gynosphinx, on the other hand, doesn't want to mate with these weaker kinds of sphinxes, as she will consider them to be beneath her, dull, unintelligent, animal-like sphinxes that they are. However, a Gynosphinx is not really physically strong, so if she ever is found by any of these more animal-like sphinxes, she will be forced to mate them. If this happens, then the offspring will always be a replica of the father. So for example, if a Cryosphinx mates with a Gynosphinx, the baby that will come forth will always be a Cryosphinx and never a Gynosphinx. This is also a big reason why the Gynosphinx doesn't want to mate with these inferior sphinxes, since she will never be able to create a baby that is a Gynosphinx. On the other hand, who the Gynosphinx actually wants to mate with is the Androsphinx, as you can imagine, since the baby from this exchange can be either an Androsphinx or a Gynosphinx, which of course is what she wants. The reason she wants this is because if something were to happen to her, which would prevent her from continuing her eternal mission to protect a sacred artifact, she would need an offspring to continue that tradition and to be able to protect that artifact further. The Androsphinx, on the other hand, hates, and I mean hates mating. You see, Gynosphinxes are way smarter than Androsphinxes, and this annoys the hell out of them. The mating process takes a very long time, and both parents stick together through the formative years of the baby in order to, teach it how to hunt and fend for itself. So this forces the Androsphinx to stay with the Gynosphinx for an extended amount of time, which annoys him, because all he ever wants is to simply peace and quiet. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Click that subscribe button to follow me for more D&D related lore videos, and remember to also follow me on Twitter to see what's going on with me and to tell me what type of video you want me to make in the future. Alright guys, I'm done here. Peace out.